All right. That was cool. Welcome to Over the Helldivers podcast, episode whatever the day's date is, May 5th. Happy Single Day Mayo, right? Right? I think so. As you can see on there we go. Over there on the left-hand side of the screen, we're gonna jump into the first part of today's podcast is going to be about Helldivers. I don't usually talk a whole lot about Helldivers. I mean, of course, I play the game, but it's about there's a bunch of people covering Helldivers directly. Somebody should turn on the news, and that's kind of what I do. Hopefully, you can stumble across this at some point and see the information today. Up top, we are going to jump down on the planet and talk about some Helldivers stuff. And then I'm going to come back up to the ship, and we're just going to talk directly about what happened with the Supreme Court just recently. There's a lot of information. I got a couple articles from Associated Press I want to kind of look at. And then it's a little late in the day for me, so we will play it by ear. I want to work a little bit more on the Be Right Back screen in Photoshop, but for now we're gonna get right to I'm hoping my audio levels are good, but okay. We're gonna get right to the current kind of state of the game. You can read in the ticker below me to see the overall gist, but I have 3 basic takeaways from my time playing Helldivers 2, and I just kind of want to put it on the record what I think would help the game improve. I was going to make an official YouTube video, like a voiceover video, but honestly, I don't feel like it. And since I'm not a YouTuber, I'm going to focus on doing stuff I enjoy, which is kind of like the overarching philosophy behind why I play Helldivers 2 and not other games like it. So let's first and foremost talk about the one thing I think would greatly benefit Helldivers 2 going forward. Am I in the match? Okay, good. I'm in the match. Okay, so this is the Galactic War. Oh, cool. I might use one of these commando missions.
Helldivers across the galaxy are fighting for every inch of territory.
I didn't know we had a new update, but
where will you join them?
So let's see here. Ooh, a new planet. I forgot they added some new planets. I may have to edit this out. We'll see. Okay, yeah, they added a couple new biomes, but I don't really fight bugs, and bugs are really tough lately, so I'm not eager to run over there and fight bugs, even for anything. If you want, you can see me get totally wrecked by some bugs in last week's podcast. Uh-oh, that's that Temu. I almost bought a crossbow and a compound bow off Temu because the app confused my adult brain. It just, oh my gosh. Anyway, okay, so the first thing is, this is our game board. The thing that really appealed to me most about Helldivers 2 was the concept of Joel being like a dungeon master in a game, a massive game of D&D, where we are actually moving across the game board to achieve a goal.
I'm sorry. Today is Cinco de Mayo. We're supposed to be drinking liquor.
I have to work. So you can drink some liquor, but I gotta work.
Oh, I need you to get it.
So basically, the concept, as it is explained to us, works out. But in practice, it feels like Joel is not really a DM as much a game manager. I think he is a replacement for a feature that doesn't quite work, which is the ongoing campaign. I think in concept, it wasn't supposed to have a human person running it, but that for whatever reason doesn't quite work. And so they had to have a human person kind of manage the system, because he definitely doesn't DM. He doesn't respond to player actions because they made it so difficult for players to affect the game board that it eliminated that possibility from Joel's role. It's like if you were playing Dungeons and Dragons, but there was nothing your characters could do to affect the outcome, and instead you just were like managing a combat sim, which isn't what Dungeons and Dragons is, which isn't what a DM does. You know, the DM is about flexibility and being able to zig and zag no matter what the players do. But if you take away the player's ability to do anything, it doesn't really matter. So the first thing I think they should do is, there's a section of the map to the left that is empty. And a lot of players think that that's going to be a new faction. My suggestion is that it does not become a faction and instead remains empty, free space. But we can go there for exploration missions and other kinds of missions that introduce story elements and single player objectives to get like different items and accessories, like sample runs that create different types of missions that have different like structures that are for a more single player focus that doesn't take away from the galactic war map. And if they do it right, players can do things in free space that then affect conditions on the galactic map so that players feel like they're doing things that actually affect the game board. In other words, I think that Joel needs a monster manual, and right now he has like this NPC book, but the NPCs and monsters don't do anything. They don't give any quest out. They don't have any connection. There's no flavor text. There's no bad guy to talk shit to us. So I feel like if you use this empty space to the left, then you could have an artifact from the squids at the bottom of the map. You could find some planet with some flavor text we could read to explain some stuff. Maybe if we could fill certain conditions on that planet, it gives us a benefit or a bonus during the major order in that sector of space. Like, give us something to search for, to explore, and it not be another faction that forces us to do the same monotonous thing over and over and over again. Because like, while I enjoy the game loop, a lot of players, they don't enjoy it as much. And because there's no other features on top of the game loop, it becomes like repetitive if you don't enjoy it. It's like jogging every day is repetitive if you hate jogging. You know, but if you love the experience, then you get up there and you do it every day. And so they have to figure out how to like enrich the experience without losing the base, you know, gameplay loop. And I think adding an extra sector that is empty space, they can get their Star Trek on, they can get their Mass Effect on, they can do those things, they can walk and chew gum at the same time. Because one of my biggest issues is the whole a game for no one is a game for, or a game everyone's game for no one. That's a cop out. That's bullshit. I don't believe that. That's crap. But I digress. But yeah, so that's the first thing I want them to consider is using this section of the map that's free space for us to do exploratory missions that have like a whole randomization on top of what they could be. No longer having to be on the planet for a set amount of time. Missions where you can like test out weapons because you've given them a little sandbox to play in for like 6 days or whatever. Like all kinds of stuff like that. Like they use the open space to give the DM some room to work and give players something to do in the midst of the major orders. Like if they need to get a certain resource, there are missions that focus on only getting super rare samples or so on and so forth. Okay, now I am not gonna go look at that new biome for this. I am going to get to my next point while I
The bugs
continue
terrorize this
farming for
planet
super
with their
credits.
mechanized brutality. Dive to the
I
surface
don't
and end them.
know that I want to do a commando mission. So, well, oh, easy. Oh wait, I think I see something. Okay, so we're gonna go to an easy mission because I just want to be
Resources
able
for
to chit chat a
freedom's
little bit.
expended.
Mission coordinates locked.
Okay.
Hellpods prime. Engaging orbital
So
thrusters.
okay, before I get up there, I forgot I wanted to move this a little
Orbit
bit.
synchronized.
So that was the first thing. I think they should add a wild space to the galactic map, basically. Okay, so next, this is the hill I'll die on. If there were ever a hot take, this is my hot take. I think weak spots are dumb. I know. I've watched the videos, I've heard the arguments, but I don't agree. I think weak spots are dumb. And you know what? Before we go down here, I want to explain why before we actually go down to a mission. So let's have a look at something here. The reason I think weak spots are dumb is because I personally think that the weapon system is brilliant. So this is my primary weapon. It is the AR-32 pacifier. I like it because it's a medium armor penetrating weapon. There is a 3-tiered weapon system: light, medium, and heavy. My argument is that if that is the way you have your weapon system, which I think at the end of the day is an excellent way to do it, chef's kiss, no complaints. The weak spot system, however, is like a completely different system that doesn't match. If you have a 3-tiered weapon system, then your enemy should have a 3-tiered armor system. Okay, so we only have a handful of weapons that are armor, like that are from the 3rd tier. So like this weapon here, the Eruptor, does heavy armor penetrating. And there are grenades and a couple other weapons that are heavy armor penetrating, and then there are weapons that are medium armor penetrating and light armor penetrating. What I am suggesting is, and I was hoping to find a Hulk mission where we could fight an automaton Hulk, but beggars can't be choosers. But what I'm suggesting is, instead of an obvious weak spot on the back of the enemy, why not have the enemy just have heavy armor that we have to use heavy penetrating ordnance against to break that level of armor? And now they have an exposed part of them that will be susceptible to medium damage. And if you break through that, that creates a light penetration or better weak spot that gets you all the damage you need to destroy whatever it is. So you basically can create your own weak spots by focusing your fire on different levels, like throw a grenade, bam. Okay, so now you've blown open the shoulder part of the enemy. So now everybody can fire on that part that you've exposed. And the reason I think you should do that is because the game has trouble performing the more enemies are on screen. And the only way that they can scale the difficulty in the game at this time, wait, I don't want that. The only way they can scale the difficulty at this time is basically by adding more enemies on screen. The reason that is the case is because weak spots make it kind of routine on how you deal with enemies. You know, it's like I watched a video with Odo, who, you know, if you're a Helldiver, you know who that is, and he was using a railgun, and it was like 4 or 5 Hulks all bounding towards him down the hill. It's a very impressive thing to watch because he's like one-shotting each one of them in the face with the railgun. And I'm thinking, well, the face shot is the weak spot, and once you have the rhythm and you're playing with keyboard and mouse, no offense, but your aim should be pretty good with keyboard and mouse, it becomes kind of routine. And so he's kind of ho-humming, yawning, taking out 5 or 6 Hulks. Wouldn't it be more challenging if it was one Hulk and that shot to the face hurt it real bad but didn't kill it? and it was still bounding towards you, firing rockets or fire or whatever, like, wouldn't that be more difficult for a game where everyone's complaining about how it's not difficult enough? People say that they don't respect people who don't play on the highest difficulty, and I guess that's great and all. But honestly speaking, you're gonna melt your computer at this point, trying to get the most enemies and explosions on screen. And the truth is, you're not making the game more difficult. You're making the game more sweaty. You're making the game more frustrating. But difficulty is subjective, and weak spots make it, to me, meta. Weak spots suggest there's a routine, a pattern, like you're playing Mega Man still, and this game is all about variety and being able to approach your problems from a bunch of different ways. And so that same automaton Hulk that I just stick with a thermite grenade and keep it pushing would be a whole different ball game if that thermite grenade just really hurt it, you know, and it was still lumbering around. But now at least with my thermite grenade doing all that damage, I can use my other weapons to continue to fight it because I've exposed a medium armor level weak spot on that particular Hulk. And so what I'm suggesting are like different hitboxes, so if you hit him in the top right shoulder, it breaks off a certain part of it, you could see the damage. We already have the different levels of damage currently. I'm just saying that to me is a far better way of going about it than a vent on the back, because that begs a very important question to me. Who would do that? You're trying to make this grand army to destroy the Helldivers and the people of Super Earth. You make this glorious weapon. You're like, we got to put this thing on the back to make it really easy to destroy it. Why? Because, you know, I mean, it takes so much more effort to fit that round hole into a square peg when you could instead just give us a 3-tiered damage system to match the 3-tiered weapon system. Like, I feel like it's mismatched, and that's part of my overall take on the state of the game. I think that Helldivers 2 was a vastly different game when they started out in its development. Hell, it probably wasn't even Helldivers 2. I think that something went terribly wrong early on, and it'll be a great story they can tell us one day. But for now, a lot of the stuff is like them fake it until they make it, you know, and that's not unique for video game development, you know. So I just think that that's what happened to them too. Tencent had to come in and give them some cash for some reason, and then Sony came in, and I think if it wasn't for Sony, this wouldn't be a live service game, but it also probably would have not been a game. So there's that. All right, so that is my second take. I think they should replace the weak spot system and instead have enemies with varying degrees of armor, and we crack them all like an egg. So you have to wear down larger enemies, and that way you make the game more challenging without increasing the number of enemies on screen. You can actually make the game more challenging and reduce the number of enemies on screen, therefore buffing the game's performance. Because now 1 or 2 Hulks are a huge pain in the ass, because even when you start cracking them with heavy armor piercing weapons, they're still standing. They can still keep going. You have to get to that inside spot where you can really do damage and destroy them. There isn't like a hole on the back or a vent on the front for you to use the force. You know what I mean? Like, instead, it takes a different level of strategy and variety. Because now you can take different weapons and do different things. You know, it's like, to me, it promotes more teamwork too. And I'm a serious solo player, if you haven't noticed. Alright. So, my last one I can explain here on the planet too. And so when I wrote this up, it was only 6 minutes. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a whole video with only 6 minutes of topic. I think I can just talk about this for a few minutes. So the last thing is, and again, this is one of my hot takes that no one agrees with me on, is I don't think support stratagems should be stratagems. I think that in our loadouts, you should be able to take anything that you carry around on the battlefield with you in your hell pod. In other words, like, since I take the ballistic shield, I mean, I'm serious about my ballistic shield. I have a custom ballistic shield. If you're playing on console, you probably can't see it. But if you're playing on PC, observe the glory of my ballistic shield. I love it to death, you know. So what I would like is if when I drop in to my mission and my hell pod opens, my ballistic shield is sitting there behind me in the hell pod. Same thing if I bring a quasar cannon or even the auto cannon with the backpack. I mean it. With like the physics and stuff is all like super fictional. So I get that it doesn't necessarily fit in there, but come on. I have a thermite grenade that you cannot see on my belt, but when I grab that bitch, it is fucking a foot and a half long. So don't tell me they don't play fast and loose with what can and can't fit inside stuff. They are using Transformers rules, as you can just see with that. Where was that thermite grenade? It's as big as my pistol, but you don't see it hanging on my belt, do you? My grenades are tiny for some reason, you know. So I'm just saying, use the same technology and do me that solid, and let me drop with my support stratagem and not have to call them in. And that way we free up stratagems in our call down. Like, let's say that I decided to bring an anti-material rifle with me as a stratagem. Why I would do that, I don't know why I just call it, I'm talking and explaining at the same time. Why I would do that? What did I do? Why did I do that? Oh, I'm trying to make a point. Okay. So let's say I brought down my AMR, right? So now I have given up a stratagem slot for a stratagem, quote unquote, that might be found randomly on the map. You think I couldn't use that slot to drop a 380 on something? Why did every time I bring an AMR and then break open a canister and find an AMR, I'm like, why did I waste a slot? So maybe because they want to put those support stratagems on the map randomly anyway, stop making them stratagems. How come I can't just put it in my loadout? And when I call down a resupply, it has ammo for all kind of stuff. Because currently as it stands right now, despite the laws of physics, there's whatever grenade I need in every grenade pack on this map, despite the fact that they don't know that I'm coming. But there's a box of grenades right now with my name on it that has all the grenades I randomly happen to need. And if somehow another Helldiver joined the map and had brand new smoke grenades I've never seen before, they would magically be in those same boxes. So don't give me that shit, is what I'm saying. Don't give it to me. You guys could make this work just better in your own invented logic. I mean, that's the beauty of fiction. You create your own rules you have to adhere to, you know? So just work on some better rules. So yeah, that's it. That is my takeaway. That is the three things I think that Arrowhead should consider doing in order to generate a better outcome. Because my biggest takeaway is based on what they've been saying since the very beginning. They caught lightning in a box. Sony bet big on live service and had some ridiculous amount of live service games all in the pipeline. And at the end of it, I think this is like the only game left, because I don't think Ready or Not is one of their games. But the live service genre is just in a state, because, and I'm just talking now, I think that we have been sort of going in the wrong direction in terms of the video game industry for a very long time. And what we see now is just sort of like the cows coming home to roost. I'm not a huge fan of MMOs because I think MMOs are by and large dishonest. They offer one experience, but they deliver something totally different that, on top of not delivering what they promise, they constantly gaslight you into feeling like if you just hang in there, then the next update will be what they promised, but they never can. And then like games like this, which is a live service game that says they're gonna do like this tabletop role-playing game thing where the players affect the game board, but 2 years later you sort of come to the reality that it's the same kind of fake promise. The game board is there, you can see it, but unless you go on Reddit or Discord and garner 30,000 players to attack a planet, you can't really affect the game board as a player or even a group of players. And they don't have any systems put into place like factions or guilds or whatever to really organize on that level in game. Like I one of my favorite YouTube channels is called Rocket Sloth. They're dope. They're dope, right? It's an awesome channel. I really love those guys. And the other day they were talking about something and they used a term that made me kind of help me understand where my frustration was coming from with this game, which I consider the best game I've ever played in terms of moving my dude around on screen. How it feels to do everything feels freaking awesome. The game is feature incomplete. They were talking about, I think, Halo Reach as one of the most feature complete games to ever launch. And what they meant by that was all the things the game could do when you pull it out of the box. That's a feature complete game. Multiplayer, deathmatch, campaign, you name it, all the features right there, you could all play them. This game is one feature, and that feature is half-assed. And that is because I don't think that without Tencent and without Sony, they had the muscle to get this done. You know, and this was like, they had a developers meeting once where the guy was talking about the war bonds, right? And he was saying that, you know, we like the fact that the players can create their own headcanon utilizing the war bonds. And at first, that sounds so cool and so intentional, but then I'm like, no, that doesn't sound quite right. Because every other game, especially live service games, that depend on season passes and what in order to get the game paid for and financed, they work all that into a season, right? So there's a theme and some sort of connective tissue as to why you're doing whatever you're doing. The war bonds just give you the items and don't bother to do anything close to like a story or anything like for example, the Viper Commandos war bond comes out, and if you look at like some of the flavor text, they explain who the Viper Commandos were and what they did and why this war bond was made to honor them. Any other game would have given you some sort of flashback mission where you could be a Viper Commando and do the mission yourself and experience whatever it was firsthand. But this game literally cannot do that. There's no like pieces for them to do a story. There's no level progression stuff, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's non-existent. Like, when I think about games like Call of Duty and others would have campaign mode and multiplayer, usually there's a mix and matching between the maps, utilizing both for multiplayer and the campaign. And players will notice when they're using a part of the campaign for the multiplayer and vice versa. they don't have enough assets to do a story campaign. They don't have any of the things you would need to make that work. It doesn't exist in the game. You can talk to 3 NPCs on your ship who just say like a handful of lines. Like, none of the stuff, the meat you would need to make a full game exist in this game. Like it just isn't there, you know. And I think that is because the engine they built the game on the 3DS doesn't support it anymore. Stingray is just like, that stuff never got alleviated. They're hiring all these people, but notoriously game engines suffer when the original people who knew how to work them aren't there anymore. I just heard a story where they can't do a remake of one of those Fallout New Vegas because apparently the source code is being held by one person and the money they're offering him for the source code isn't enough. Like, it's like that. And Arrowhead isn't immune to that, or that's not unique, you know. And they're just on this up and up deal with Arrowhead, and it's had all these weird bumps and bruises along the way, like the number of players who aren't allowed to play because of some weird restriction and where they are in the world, all that stuff. Like, I feel like they are hanging on as best they can, and their only mandate is to turn a profit. And that the people who initially envisioned a game are probably either over it or are moving on to whatever the next project is. But they're just doing the best they can, because the video game industry sucks. And it sucks because when Sony came in trying to monopolize the industry 20 years ago, players didn't revolt. And now 20 years later, you don't own your games anymore, and the quality of games versus the price of games is getting outrageous to where now people are looking at independent developers for quality games. And the assumption now is that quote-unquote AAA developers are going to make crap. How'd that happen? You know, I think that Helldivers 2 being the best game I've ever played, but barely being a proof of concept, and it being basically what Sony does, is irony. That's what I think. But you know, I'm probably wrong too. So there's that. If you're watching this on YouTube, please leave a comment. As you'll notice, oh, I didn't get rid of the thing. That's okay. It's okay. All right. So that's the end of that. That's the end of that segment. That segment, it went better than I thought, I guess. I finished the whole mission. Talked for 18 minutes, you know. Okay. I'm gonna take a quick water break, literally, because usually, you know, it's like watching the news and